This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Franny's Pharmacy.
Now more than ever, it's important that our society focuses more on our mental and physical health. At Franny's Pharmacy, the team is committed to their community's need of being happy, healthy, and stress-free. Come learn how Franny's Pharmacy can assist you in a clean, professional environment with their expert bud tenders that are excited to educate you about the benefits of their lab-tested, DEA-certified CBD products. Franny's Pharmacy also offers wholesale and franchise opportunities. Visit their website at frannysPharmacy.com, and that's pharmacy with an F, and use the promo code CannaConnect10 for an exclusive Cannabinoid Connect discount. Again, that's Franny's Pharmacy with an F.com and use the promo code CannaConnect10 for an exclusive Cannabinoid Connect discount. Franny's Pharmacy, putting the farm back into pharmacy. Ryan, Harish, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Kevin. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, really excited to be talking with you today. Harish and I were actually just talking before we got recording, before you hopped on, Ryan, and I was just telling him, I'm so fascinated by both of y'all's backgrounds. Ryan, you basically exiting two different companies before starting, in your new role here with LeafLink. And Harish, you have a really strong background in the tech space, working previously as head of product for both Apple and Microsoft. And so, I think that's a good place to start. I mean, why don't you guys both talk about, your skill sets, your experience prior to entering the cannabis space, because it's super valuable. I mean, we need smart people like you, and it's just great to see y'all entering.
Yeah, I could kick us off. I mean, my background, I've very much been down the entrepreneurial path. Started a couple companies before LeafLink. I've always geared towards like business to business enterprise offerings, and regulated spaces were always interesting. My last company was actually in the fintech, like SEC, FINRA realm of regulation. And I just think there's higher barriers to enter some of these markets, which makes it just complex and fascinating. Cannabis went legal, in Colorado 2015. And so we thought this new space is evolving, coming from, obviously the illicit market, but can we define it? Can we really define before it needs to be disrupted with technology? And so for me, regulation, enterprise, software solutions that support customers, that run businesses, other entrepreneurs, all about that, love that, and find it really inspiring.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I started my career out as an engineer, started with Microsoft, and then moved over to product led dynamics, very much a B2B space, and then spend a lot of time there solving problems for SMB space and SMB, small and mid-sized businesses across the board. Left Microsoft to go to business school, and pivoted to try my hand at entrepreneurship, to not much success, but then went back into building products for large companies. Right before joining LeafLink, I was at Apple, leading product for Siri. So my only segue into consumer product, but otherwise my experience and my passion has pretty much been for in a B2B space, technology space, solving problems for very much personas around back office, middle office, and front office folks. So when I heard about LeafLink, I think that last year was the first time I heard about LeafLink, and I was not very aware of cannabis space. It was very fascinating. It's kind of world coincided for me in terms of like a B2B companies, but a very nascent new industry, and real with a lot of opportunity. So joined the LeafLink team, and it's been a year now.
Never a dull moment in the space.
Not at all. I mean, yeah, they can definitely attest to that, and it's a perfect segue, Harish, because I was going to ask you both, like, the journey of creating LeafLink, right? I mean, from both of y'all's background, Ryan, your strong entrepreneurship background and the experience there, and Harish in the B2B product, technology space. I bet that, wow, I mean, you're looking at this, like you said, this burgeoning nascent industry, and it's like, the amount of potential that technology has when it comes to cannabis. So, I will start with you, Harish. I mean, how did they pull you away from traditional corporate America, from great companies like Apple and Microsoft? I mean, like you said, it was an opportunity, right? But from your perspective on being real tech focused, what did you see there?
Yeah. I think there are two reasons. One is definitely the team at LeafLink, Ryan, Zach, very inspirational story in terms of like starting in a very brand new industry. I want to pick Ryan's brain on like, how did you even think of like starting a business in like an industry that is like barely legal there in like back in 2015? But really inspired by the story and the passion they have for the industry. That was like the one part, which is the people part. The second part is just the opportunity, right? So it's a new industry. Customers are trying to find themselves. Customers are running into problems that they have never seen before. There are not many players there. There is not a very robust technology stack. It's very fragmented in terms of the solutions that customers have. And for me, being on the other side where I've seen like a very mature tech stacks in industries like manufacturing, distribution, other industries, non-cannabis industries, I saw like a lot of these are table stakes in other industries that we're still trying to find. So there is a lot of opportunity for me, at least, having solved the very similar problems, to come up with similar experiences, learnings from my previous companies, but apply to like a new set of problems.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. And I mean, Ryan, you and your buddy Zach, I mean, you're the co-founders, right? So tell us a little bit about, I guess, the last exit you had, and then really the light bulb moment where like, hey, we need to start playing in the space because we can really add some value here.
Yeah, and just so everyone's clear on what LeafLink is, we're the largest wholesale B2B platform in the space. We really support our customers from the moment, and our customers being retailers, brands, and distributors, the moment an order is created to how it's paid for, financed, and delivered. We want to help brands be the best brands, retailers be the best retailers, and leverage our scale on everything in between. Really like do what you do best, specialize there. And we obviously do that with our technology. My last company, I started it as an undergrad, and it got acquired by this publicly traded REIT. It was a much smaller team than LeafLink. I'd say a sleepier industry as well. But I think what was like actually the company that acquired that company was like an older finance firm, dark wood walls, very tight ties, and
mahogany chairs and scotch in the afternoon
with the bar underneath. And so I very much wanted to just go like, what is the exact opposite of that? I think there's always exciting opportunity in things that maybe make people feel uncomfortable at first, and then they become the norm, or even no longer cool or interesting. And that's, I think, what is mainstreaming the industries and the product and the plant itself is all about. And so for my co-founder and Zach was actually at eBay on their enterprise team at the time. He had started and sold some companies before. We began thinking about like what opportunity as a space is discovering itself and maturing to really build technology in at the very beginning. And what I think is really cool about where we sit, LeafLink processes almost half of all wholesale transactions in the US, is I do think we can go from the space being so fragmented, so hectic, so many different personalities and new brands, companies going out of business. I think at the end of the day, like 5 years from now, we'll be at a place where our industry will be the most efficient because it began with technology from the beginning, made for it. Obviously, we believe that technology at the foundation is LeafLink, but then other more legacy verticals, older industries can look at cannabis and it's not like, oh, that's the Wild West. They're like, actually, we want to be like cannabis because it sits on technology, the technology being LeafLink, and really begin to emulate those efficiencies. That gets me excited every day and is part of, I think, the fire we have behind us and what we're building for our customers.
Yeah. I mean, it gets me excited to hear smart gentlemen like yourself who are not traditional cannabis operators or business owners, or, but you come in and you see the opportunity of how this industry can do things different and be more efficient, like you said, right? Using technology, even in other capacities. I've had guests on from the HR side that's like, hey, we could really, do something different when it comes to company culture and the way employees are treated in this industry. I mean, there's so many opportunities. So let's start, in your purview with LeafLink, and that is, the initial goal of and in which you are doing now, and that is streamlining the cannabis supply chain. So specifically, how are y'all doing that? And how many markets are you serving at this point across the US, and how do those differ?
Yeah, so we're in 30 markets, whether it's recreational or medical, doesn't matter. As long as it's licensed, we can work with those operators. And the way customers use the platform, what we've seen is if you're a purchasing manager of dispensary or a corporate purchasing department for some of the larger MSOs that we work with, we figure they spend, we save them about a day a week in how they do their ordering, reordering, sampling processes, because a lot of these stores are ordering from 30 to 50 different brands at a pretty regular cadence. What we built within LeafLink is a concentrated shopping experience across very many brands with tracking and a number of other tools around payments and delivery logistics that they don't have to do themselves anymore. And so we save them time, we save them capital, and because of the market penetration that we have, we can bring them efficiencies and leverage our scale in a way that really like no single operator can themselves. And then when it starts to get really exciting is we work with a number of companies across the country in 7, 8, 9 territories. And so they can really build a consistent technology and operational stack for their businesses without having to start from scratch in every market they get into. And so really allowing our customers to take advantage of that is exciting to us and one of the main value drivers that we bring to them.
Mm-hmm. And then last question, and we'll switch over to the importance of or the role that technology plays in cannabis. But I want to ask you, when you're thinking about expanding into other markets, is there a specific criteria or certain qualities that you look for in that market? And if so, what are those?
In most of our markets at this point, we're launching them with partners that are already on LeafLink in other states. For us, we like to trend towards markets that are obviously growing quickly, that have a lot of diversity of licenses, that have a non-vertically integrated supply chain. We work in both, but when I think about like where people can drive the most value, and so for us, those are the ones that make the most sense. As long as they're licensed and there's a compliance regimen we can keep to, we jump into those territories and really spark the marketplace between brands and retailers. Once that network effect is really kicking, we then launch these other tools along the way to support their back office operations.
Got you. Okay. So yeah, I mean, let's switch gears, talk about kind of what we touched on initially, and that is the opportunity that technology presents in this infant, industry that we're currently operating in. And so obviously, Harish, this is your wheelhouse, but of course, Ryan, chime in as well. I want to just ask, just overall, the role of technology within the industry and the potential. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And then we can specifically talk about, solutions that LeafLink provides and the value that it's adding within the industry as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are two areas where I see as obviously technology automates and adds value to any and every industry, and that has been much more prevalent over the past 3 years, at least 2 years from the COVID-induced digital transformation as well. I think from a cannabis industry perspective, our customers themselves are starting out, growing their business, and their needs are ever changing. So a company with 50 employees and eventually growing to like maybe 250 employees, 2,000 employees, their needs are changing as our customers grow from a business standpoint. The second piece is just regulatory landscape that as a part of running a successful cannabis business is you also need to stay compliant with the regulatory bodies. The third piece is like there are a lot of companies that easily can, like a lot of tech vendors that can easily offer their solutions to any other industry. Many are not in cannabis industry. So I think there is an opportunity in terms of lack of tech stack that is tailored to this industry customers actually growing and learning about what they need, plus regulatory environment. I think all three of the presents a challenging problem, but that's an opportunity for tech to solve it. So as for example, as a distributor, like the key things that you want to do is like you want to manage your product catalog, inventory, you want to manage your customers, your orders, and fulfill those orders and get paid. You can do all of that on LeafLink platform while staying compliant with your by integrating with our track and trace systems and staying compliant with the regulatory bodies. So a lot of these operational inefficiencies that are growing pains of customers in a new industry, or maybe like a industry that is still finding itself. I think technology can really solve a lot of those by streamlining operations end to end, and that's what we kind of we're trying to do, and that's why we have this majority market share.
Mhm.
For our customers too, like Harish, super well said. I think starting a cannabis business any business to start is difficult. There's just so many other disadvantages that our customers have to face, from the tax, how predatory the tax regimens are in different states, to the reporting that they have to do, to how limited capital is and how difficult it is to raise capital for plant touching businesses. Like, those are always hard things. It's just completely amplified for our customers. And so when you think about the role of technology, it's all the more necessary. Like, let's put some points on the board and help our customers achieve their goals when they're kind of starting off in a negative position, given those disadvantages from the get-go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't imagine entering the space in 2015 from both of y'all's perspective and being like, wow, like, the lack of probably technology solutions to automate a lot of these processes and address these pain points. I mean, is there any stories that stand out when you first entered where you're like, wait, what's going on here? We could do this a lot better or more efficiently.
Yeah. So when we signed our first customer in Colorado they went live in early 2016, end of 2015, we were at their warehouse helping them, going on sales calls with their sales team, pack boxes, understanding like how the manufacturing process worked, saw how cash and checks were counted. And what we found was the business was operating on like whiteboards, spreadsheets, lots of text messages. And so if you even ask simple questions of like, what was the most popular product sold yesterday? Or like, how are you thinking about inventory planning for tomorrow? It's like, oh, well, this, kind of that. I don't like it, very subjective. And what we found was the reason is not because people didn't want the tools to give them the right answers, is that they couldn't use them. Like, there are certain solutions on the accounting side, on the ERP side. A lot of this has changed, but back then they just weren't willing to work with customers in the space. So what Zach and I said, we're like, all right, let's get you all off of these very manual, non-automated tools that you're using to run your business. Begin using those virtually. We will build them for you as you need them. And that was on the brand side. And then we began sparking the marketplace for bringing in retailers. What we did was allow companies to use tools that they pretty much are taken for granted in any other space that they just couldn't access because of this industry that we're in, which we thought was unfair and crazy, and back to the disadvantages of being in cannabis early days. So a lot of this has gotten better, but that was part of one of the first experiences.
Right. What about you, Harish? Any horror stories on your side?
So I've only been in the industry for about 11 months now, so still fairly new. But I echo Ryan. I mean, I think I'm sure that things are much better now. But a lot of the things that you take for granted, and some of these like problems that were kind of like table stakes, our customers still experience those. Just lack of access to banking across like a nationalized way. I think that's a big challenge for our customers too. I think especially LeafLink payments solutions that we're trying to offer in many of these markets. I think those will solve some of those problems, but I think a lot of those things that you take for granted, they're just not available.
Right.
I think something that's really special about Harish being on our team and a number of other teammates at LeafLink is they wouldn't probably be in the cannabis industry if they weren't here with us building for our customers. And Harish and I have been on a number of customer calls that, they'll wrap up, and at the end he'll say, yeah, like this is 100% what we used to solve for our customers when we were building out Dynamics at Microsoft. And it's
Right.
like, at the end of the day, the product is what it is, but these are businesses with similar challenges. And so to bring that level of experience and understanding from other verticals to our space and empower them in that way I think it's special and really exciting.
It's really special, and it's super needed, right? I mean, you hear a lot, and not a lot, but I mean, there's some operators out there. There's this, quote unquote debate, like the suits versus the legacy operators. And hey, I think that there's a world where we all live together because each side adds so much value, right? I mean, the technology stack and the solutions that LeafLink is bringing to the industry is wasn't there before, right? I mean, it was non-existent. So having that in addition to other technology and applying that in a way that can improve and automate and make the industry more efficient while leaning on the expert, legacy operators for their growing or cultivation best practices, it's a win-win. So it's just exciting.
Part of how we think about the personas of our customers and how we want to support them. I mean, you could be the largest company, and some of the largest companies in the country are on LeafLink, and you might want to drive your margin or your bottom line and not be doing so much across the full life cycle of an order. For example, a lot of companies don't want to handle the logistics component of their business. We lean into where they are and help them with that. And that's at the larger side. When you think about smaller companies, you could have maybe one shop or one brand or two shops. Like they can utilize everything on the platform to really get an edge that they wouldn't otherwise have. And so for us, we want to appeal to the smallest of businesses and the largest of businesses to meet them where they are and give them tools they need to hit their goals as well.
Mm-hmm. Let's dig into that a bit deeper. I mean, I think this is an area where both of you can speak to. I mean, the first is, let's talk about more challenges that LeafLink customers face today, or cannabis operators face, and what specific solutions LeafLink is providing to address those pain points and those challenges.
So among the first ones we saw when we launched our marketplace, which is really our core community, our launch point for everything else on the platform. We have over 10,000 businesses that utilize LeafLink every day to do their purchasing. More than 4 to 5 retailers in the country are on LeafLink. And one of the things we found was, this is still the case, but there's a lot of new brands joining the industry. There's a lot of product education that's required. There's a lot of tracking and transparency that's needed by customers when they do make a purchase. And that whole education, purchasing, sampling component, and the time spent, like I said before, on doing those things, having, a salesperson show up at any given day to your dispensary to do a demo day versus you having control as the person running that dispensary. These were all just like breakdowns in communication that we saw between buyers and sellers. And so what we wanted to do was consolidate that, automate more of that, and really get to a place where we can even make it predictive at a certain point. So you could focus on running your shop and having great, like I said, experience for retailers, and not have to be constantly thinking about and fielding, sales reps at your organization, and really work with the brands that you want to work with. For brands, I think a lot of it comes down to people enter the industry to make amazing products, right? Like great storylines with incredible narratives and on certain missions for their consumers. They didn't enter the space to track people down for their payments. They didn't enter the space to have to build their own software to track inventory. They didn't want to be doing the last mile delivery. All those things, I think, are really strong pain points that make one company have to do 10 things versus the thing they do best. And so that's really where we come in to partner with them.
Right. Harish, anything to add there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think on top of all of these, some of the problems that they also run into are like, as your business is growing, you're using multitude of tools. Now, how do these tools communicate with each other? If you're running most of your business on LeafLink, how do I make sense of the things that I do not on LeafLink, and how do I collate that information? How do I, as as any persona that you're looking at, whether you're a sales manager, whether you're a purchasing manager, whether you're a finance persona, how do I kind of get through with all these various different tools and have a holistic view of my products, my inventory, my customers, my orders, my payments, my invoices, all of those at one place? How do we do that? And I think a big part of the story is story of building a B2B enterprise software that scales with you is it also talks to the rest of the systems that you use. And that's also a big part of our value proposition is we integrate well with various different B2B tech stacks and tools, as well as with track and trace systems, so that it's not just you are doing only business on LeafLink, but your entire business is seamlessly connected through all the tools you use, because LeafLink can integrate really well with the rest of the tech stack as well.
Yeah, that's got to be a huge differentiator. I mean, you both have touched on that, and I think it's worth calling out is the fact that LeafLink, was started and continues to run on the premise of like customized solutions, right? So you're kind of growing and scaling the platform as needed with your customer base, depending on their needs and what they're looking for. So that really seems like it positions LeafLink well for future innovation, as it relates to technology and cannabis. So let's talk about that. I mean, the future of tech, all the potential opportunities that technology presents. How will LeafLink be able to scale and keep up with that pace of innovation from your perspective?
For me, it starts. You get Harish.
No, go for it.
I think for me, it starts with the community and the network effect that we have and the things we can learn from them on what they need. Like everything we built has been from customer feedback on the challenges they're facing and what solutions they need, how unhappy they are with this partner or that partner in a certain market. And then when they get into multiple markets as they scale, how can they have like a unified system that just is like from the minute they want to get it live and going, they can tap that network of buyers or sellers and be off to the races. So for us, that's our, I think, important components of where technology plays. I think also when we talked about like setting the foundation for the vertical, I do believe without technology, we're going to be on a path where if you look at liquor, there's 4 or 5 companies that basically own all the brands.
Right.
I think that's because it's a 100-year-old industry. And after that prohibition, there was just a lot of this consolidation moves, and there will be consolidation. There'll be consolidation in the cannabis industry, but the usage of technology, I think, makes businesses that may not have otherwise been viable, particularly smaller, medium-sized businesses. And so that's really where we want to play in, which is like, let's have diversity, diverse licenses. Let's have a number of players, thousands of players that can use technology to run a good business. And it doesn't need to be the biggest business. We work with them too, but also like local business. How can that maintain its like viability as an organization using our technology? That's part of, I think, how we create and keep this industry respectful of its heritage, but also ready for the future.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. And echo Ryan's sentiments on like the path to innovation is just truly being passionate about your customers, the problems that they're facing, passionate about the industry that you are trying to solve problems for. So that's the first place to start. As we continue to learn more and more about our customers and their businesses and their problems that they're facing, the 2 aspects that really drive innovation are like, okay, they are here. Where do we see our customers? Where are our customers going 12 months from now, 18 months from now, 2 years from now? Where is our industry going? How do we anticipate some of these problems? Because we cannot be playing catch up. We need to go first where our customers are going and try to solve for those. So by the time they arrive, we're ready to solve those problems. I think that's the first piece. The second piece is if we are going to be nimble enough to innovate in this space, we need to build internally ourselves with the principles of like how we truly build products in an iterative fashion as building blocks. Being able to quickly innovate and react to the changes, whether what the customers are experiencing or what the industry is experiencing. So in terms of like how we are kind of set up to be able to innovate. Not every company can innovate or move fast like the others, primarily because that's how their operating model is, or the infrastructure they have built up, whether it allows for you to innovate. The third piece are the people. They're the most important aspect of any company too. We know the problems. We're set up for success from a foundational standpoint. Do we have the right people? Do we have the smart people who are passionate about the industry, passionate about customers, who can actually quickly solve problems, think out of the box, and then innovate on top of the infrastructure that we have built up to solve those customer problems? And I believe we at LeafLink have 3 of those that I feel like we're set up to solve some of these problems in a more innovative way for the next, like I would say, like 18 months to like 3 years or so.
Makes total sense. I mean, my career, background has been primarily in B2B technology, but traditional technology spaces, right? So in that case, I understand exactly what you're saying. It sounds like LeafLink is in perfect position because you want to be proactive, right? So that you're ahead of what's coming in terms of innovation and whatnot, but you want to have that infrastructure and be set up to where if you need to quickly pivot and innovate based off the customer need, you're able to do so. And you're able to do so also with the right people, right? The right talent and skill sets. So that's great. I mean, especially again, with this new industry where we're just getting started. And so that leads me to my next kind of part here. And that is like, what's next for LeafLink, right? So there's been different federal legislation proposed. There's been talks of safe banking, not much movement there, but I mean, any of those, federal reform bills, if they pass, or, anything kind of movement happens at the federal level, what is the implication of that for LeafLink, and what is the plan?
I think if you went back 6 years now and cannabis went legal in 2016, it would look fundamentally different than it will when it eventually, who knows, goes legal at the federal level. Back then, there were, 10% of the number of states that have some program in place, with now years of precedent. And so what I think you have as a result is like the federal government, when they catch up to what everyone wants, which is to legalize this space, they're going to do it piecemeal, and it's going to have to be respectful of each of the states' regulatory structures. The ones that have existed now for 5, it will be 10, could be 10 years. And so I think things like SAFE, whether it passes, I don't think it's going to pass before the election. If it passes after the election in a lame duck session, that could be super interesting. But there'll be these like marginal steps forward, and the space is at a place where like we'll take what we can get, because we have really nothing has really changed the
Right.
federal level. And
Yeah.
so beggars really can't be choosers at this point. And I think the federal government will continue to move the steps forward little by little. I think it'll be SAFE Act would be huge because of the institutional capital that could come in. But it's going to take time. And for us at LeafLink, what I think that means is the existing structure of the supply chain and the licenses that are in cannabis will likely calcify to how they've historically been. I imagine there'll be changes though, where like you might have some smaller states on the East Coast that have tri-state agreements where they can move product across state lines, because you can't do that right now. And that could be interesting. There's a certain moment in my mind where, like, if you're in California, you can't see, and you're selling a product, you can't see a buyer in Massachusetts, but because of the licenses, there could be a time where we begin to take those walls down, and then people could really like discover and build new business relationships, new products across state lines. That's exciting. And we built a lot of the platform to be modular in that way, so that we're ready for what those changes might be. I think it's going to take a long time, and for us, we've obviously done really well with the structure of the vertical as a space as it is. We want to keep pushing regulations forward. We have an incredible team actually in DC that works on our public policy side, really but our whole approach has been more local because that's, I think, where the progress is, and we'll keep up and help guide with the federal regulators. I was actually just in DC 3 weeks ago, meeting with a number of senators and Congress people, speaking about just this, the SAFE Act, and we'll help guide. But it's going to take some time.
What was the reception, meeting directly with senators, policymakers on this topic?
So both sides of the aisle were basically, I can't believe we're still talking about this. It's like been 9 years.
So they know that something needs to be done at this point.
Yeah, I mean, like that act, the SAFE Act, was drafted up when the Cole memo was drafted up. Like that's how long ago. And so that was in place and rescinded in the last administration in that time. And so Ed Perlmutter, who's the co-sponsor. It's been going for so long. He's about to retire at the end of the session, and
I heard
so
that. Yeah.
yeah, there might, he's pushing forward. Everyone's pushing forward because that's part of his legacy. Great guy. But it's been just cooking forever. And I think one thing that's changing though is I think both sides of the aisle recognize like this could be their issue, whether it's on the business side or the social side. Like there's a lot of appealing things that people can connect on. Like most Americans don't agree about most things, but I think on this one they do. And so if there could be some, cross the aisle collaboration, that's how it gets done. But there's still a little ways off.
Right. And it's not prioritized right now, right? I mean, there's a lot of other things going on with our economy and
right. Like we live in this industry and our customers are here, but you zoom out, the world has a lot of other problems as well.
Right.
Obviously, they take precedent.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Well, let's talk about, future outlook for the company, both from the tech perspective and, just overall where you see the company being in terms of maybe expansion or even going public at that point. So, yeah, crystal ball 5 years from now, what will we be talking about in terms of what LeafLink is doing?
Harish, you want to start from the tech side?
Let's start off with the tech side. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I would say LeafLink would be like the Amazon or Microsoft of cannabis, right? So we offer full suite of solutions for customers. We power the cannabis commerce supply chain infrastructure for both brands, distributors, retailers. Things are automated. We have taken care of optimizing operational issues, and customers are driving efficiencies through our platform. So our sellers can focus on what they do best, which is creating products, offering products to their retailers, and retailers can focus on what they do best, which is take these products and offer it to consumers in a way that optimizes their experience, and then the industry in and itself is growing. In any case, if you think about like right now, say the industry is 25 billion. 3 years from now, it's 50 billion. By the end of 2030, it's $100 billion industry. That's a pretty massive industry with a lot of players, a lot of customers. And with that, if tech is not there, there'll be tremendous amount of inefficiencies that nobody will be able to run a successful business without tech leading the way. So I think tech will be, if cannabis as an industry were to be successful, it is currently successful, were to continue to be successful, tech has to be a big part of the story.
What specifically type of tech? I mean, I guess, we hear things about AI, machine learning. I talked to Natal, who basically builds robots. He worked, for NASA JPL, and what types of specific technology innovations do you predict you see?
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's across the board, right? So if you think about the problem spaces are customers. So I think on the side of cultivators, you talked about AI and robotics. I think potentially there could be a solve in terms of, we could see a world in that. We could see potentially some computer vision in terms of like testing, like monitoring the plants, monitoring the quality, ensuring that the products that are delivered from brands to retailers are transported in a way that is compliant, leveraging tech in terms of like ensuring like sorting, sending out, distribution across the board in terms of logistics. And then obviously there's a whole host of B2C and consumer technology that we already are seeing that are going to continue to permeate. We at LeafLink essentially are in the business of B2B. So everything that you think about in terms of like, how do we kind of create a storefront as a brand and connect with their buyers? How do we ensure that we move the product from point A to point B in a way that is servicing our own retailers? How do we stay compliant? How do we ensure that some of our problems in terms of like in an industry, how do we like maintain like potentially insurance, or like how do we have like financial aspect of our company tied to our supply chain aspect of the company? So there are a whole host of problems across the supply chain, all the way from the seed to the point that I guess people consume the product. I think there's a whole host of problems that can be transformed and solved through tech. We're already doing that, and we're going to continue to grow that direction. I think my thought is like this has to be just like any other industry, right? So we're not alone in this world. Like there are plenty of other industries that are adopting tech, and we need to at least maintain parity along with leverage tech opportunistically in terms of problems that are very unique to this industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Harish, I love your passion of solving problems, man. I can just tell that, you know, you like to see something that's a challenge and just try to figure out what technology can be applied to address that issue. And it's great. And so let's switch gears. Let's talk to the man in charge, Ryan. I mean, pull out your crystal ball 5 years from now, you know, LeafLink, where are you seeing the company being in terms of expansion, possibly public, operational?
A lot of the things Harish mentioned are very much underway, and I think at the highest level, this like interwovenness of technology and operations is very much where we're investing our time and innovating. And what I'd like the space to get to is all the things that we are creating on LeafLink platform that manage the full life cycle of a wholesale order can become more predictive. And I think that can be felt not only on a screen, but also in a warehouse, on the roads, in your shop, in a very real, tangible way. And I think that becomes then a model for, like I said, what other verticals could be like. I think it's going to take us, though, another 2 to 4 years. And in terms of like where we go for the company, like we'll continue, you know, to raise capital. If it makes sense to, you know, list one day, we'll explore that as well. There's obviously some challenges for cannabis companies to do that. But for me, I do think fast forward 10 years, people will look back and like it will almost be a joke. The cannabis industry, it will be thought of as the most efficient. That it wasn't always that way will be a quickly forgotten fact, because I want to get to a place where if you're a dispensary, you know that every Thursday at 4 p.m., all of your products come from one partner, from amazing different brands, that's consistent, it's process oriented, and it's predictable in a way that you don't have to even think about it. I want to get to a place where if you're a dispensary, you could say what kind of shop you want to have. Is it luxury? Is it budget? And based on your zip code, based on your customers, we can basically create for you, with the exceptional data that we have, a full line of products on the shelves from our customers. So you don't even need to worry about any of these things. You can just like focus on the experience of the patient or the consumer in your shop. These things get me really excited, and I think it's our real opportunity to like set that standard for the space.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you for calling out data, because I think that's one area that I believe we're far ahead, because when Ryan and Zach started this company way back in 2016, and then right away they recognized the value of building out infrastructure that ensures that we collect the data and present it to customers that can actually operationalize that data, as well as we can leverage that to become more predictable. I think that's actually an even better word to kind of talk about, like what's the one word that you would want to kind of categorize 5 years from now is like more predictability and consistency in a fairly like a fast moving industry.
I'm writing that down. Predictability and what?
Consistency.
And consistency. That's right.
Maybe they both
because
the same.
And I mean, Kevin, back to your question before, like one of the challenges for brands is they don't want to lose their spot on a shelf. They want to always be there, always be present for the consumer. But they don't control that. The retailer does, you know, or their manufacturer. And so like, how can we make these things more boring, more predictable? And then that for them is how they could build their brand presence. People can know their product. And it's better for the consumer. It's better for the brand. I think for retailers, if there's issues there, it's because of all the other breakdowns that happen along the life cycle of a wholesale transaction, which is exactly what we want to help support.
Right. And I mean, I want to hear your thoughts on this, Ryan. And of course, Harish, like when I hear you guys talk about this and being predictable, it's like almost like, you know, the space so well, you know what's coming. Like you said, you have your products coming Thursday or whatever, you can plan for that stuff. So the missing piece, the missing component is that advanced technology, or even that technology that's existing where it can just automate it and just make it more streamlined. Right. And when I hear you talk, you use the word excited. I get so excited because it's possible. I mean, in other industries and even in other job functions, I mean, once you've done it for so long, you can apply what you've learned, right, to kind of carry out the process or build out the strategy, because it may have not been in the specific industry, but hey, it's all similar. It can be applied.
Totally. And like what is powerful and what we can do for our customers is have them take advantage of that. The fact that we have almost half of wholesale, like that is an exceptionally rich data set that you would never get access to, let alone be able to act upon if weren't in the LeafLink community. And so for us, it's valuable because we can let our customers weaponize that for their benefit as well. Super exciting.
Right. No, absolutely. Well, as we wrap up, I got one last question for y'all, and that is, obviously the industry is maturing, slowly, day by day. We're seeing it's improving, but what can we do as members of the industry, operators, business owners, whatever? What can we do to normalize the cannabis industry? There's a lot of stigma around cannabis still. So what is your perception on that?
I think that there needs to be a clearer story around the space. I think every state, people in different markets aren't always collaborating with each other, and people are fighting the same battles and challenges as states come online that have been won elsewhere, or mistakes have been made that we can learn from. And I think part of that, like, more together unified narrative of like, what is the space? What do we want the space to be? And for us to really own that, I think is really important. Otherwise, if we don't, as participants in the vertical, somebody else will, and it likely won't be to our advantage. One of the challenges I've definitely seen is when you speak to different regulators or operators, like, people may only know what they know from one small territory, one part of the market, or they could have that idea across others. I think we need to like zoom out a little bit and have a clearer view of the narrative of the space, which is we want, safe access that's fairly licensed with diverse operators that are empowered to win and own really their own future. Like, there's an awesome American story, like,
Yeah,
within this industry that I don't think we lean into as much. And if it wasn't this plant with the really horrible history that it has around, oppression and over policing, like, it would be it is, I think it's the most exciting, but it would be to everybody the most exciting thing.
right.
But we need to really own that story more clearly for regulators, for naysayers, for certain generations are less open-minded to the space, and really explain to them what the value is and how we want it to be.
Mm-hmm. That's sound advice. I mean, Harish, I'm interested to hear your perspective. I mean, you said 11 months into the space, right? So you're fresh. I mean, what's your take on this?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's definitely a stigma around the product, the plant in itself. But I think for me, I think people working in this industry specifically take pride in your work, like as you do in any other industry, right? For me, I'm so like excited about problems that we talk about, like, on the technology that we can leverage, and when we think about like we're building these things the right way, we're leveraging infrastructure that is scalable. We expose via API. We use latest technologies that are available out there. I mean, you name it, right? So this is all like, if you were not working in this industry, if you are working in any other industry, you'd be like excited to share, write a blog, like share it with your like people who are like engineers, product managers, like take pride in your work and share it with the world that these are the problems that I'm working on. I'm excited to be in this industry solving these problems. And then that's really normalizes a lot of things, right? So, I mean, like, I'm on LinkedIn talking about like geeking out about like how easily we can onboard customers onto our payments products. And if with any other industry, that's a pretty exciting problem to solve. And like the takeaway is less around like the like whether the industry, what industry we're in, and more about like, okay, this is like a problem state that somebody's trying to solve, and then this is an innovative solution that we found, and it's something worth sharing. So, I mean, like I'm excited. I mean, I've been like you said, 11 months. I didn't know much about before joining in, but I think it's been a fun ride so far.
Yeah, it's really great advice too. I mean, like, with me, I know that when I have the opportunity to post on like LinkedIn, which is, more traditional business professional platform, of course, cannabis is a legitimate industry, but it's still there's stigma around it. But any chance that I get to talk about cannabis or what I'm doing from an educational standpoint, it's a win, right? Because it educates the end person who's consuming the content, the audience, but also it's a way to normalize it. I mean, hey, there are people working in this industry, and it is a plant that there's compounds within it that get you high, and there's some that don't. And if we could just have that real conversation and just start to educate to both of your points,
Yeah.
right? I think that we're really going to see some traction. So this has been a fantastic conversation. I mean, you guys are doing incredible work with LeafLink. Hats off to the innovation that you're driving within the space. And I'll say it. I mean, we're lucky. The industry's lucky to have talented, smart people like both of you and the LeafLink team, among others, right? And other companies that are coming in and really tackling a lot of these problems that need to be solved. So with that, I want to just leave the floor. Is there anything else that you guys want to leave the audience with that's maybe top of mind before we go?
Visit us. We're at www.leaflink.com. Obviously on Twitter and Instagram as well. You can find us there, or just shoot us an email at sales@leaflink.com. I'm at ryan.smith@leaflink.com. Always happy to continue the conversation and figure out other ways we can partner and support the industry as we continue to go mainstream, customers continue to grow. And I think one thing I'll say is we're going through, obviously the economy's having some trouble, are actually like sometimes magnified for cannabis companies, and feel really good about like us getting through this is like one of the most resilient verticals that's out there. And LeafLink's here as that partner, excited to continue to bring others into the community, and definitely like feel free to reach out. Happy to walk people through what we're building for everyone.
Love it. Harish, last words?
Yeah. Echo Ryan in terms of the current environment and the market and the squeeze that our customers are experiencing. If LeafLink is not in your world, make us part of your world so that we can alleviate some of your pains. We can take on some of the painful problems so you can focus on like ensuring that your businesses are running in a healthy fashion, and we can see each other on the other side of this, whatever slump that we're in. So I echo that, and again, feel free to reach out to me at harish.mukhami@leaflink.com.
Perfect. Yeah. And I'll be sure to include the links that Ryan mentioned along with both your emails in the description box for YouTube so that people can easily access that. So gentlemen, it's been
Awesome.
a pleasure. Thank you so much again. Really enjoyed you sharing your insights. Keep blazing the trails. And I'd love to have you back on, as you guys continue to evolve and the industry grows.
Looking forward to it. Yeah. Thanks, Kevin. Great catching up, and Harish, always awesome chatting.
Yeah, likewise. Pleasure talking to you, Kevin.
Absolutely. Yes. Pleasure's all mine. And thank you all for listening. Bye.